We're under heavy fire, sending Craig. Oh, he's here. Good. Hi, I'm Son.
No, you're not.
Yes, I am.
Who said so?
Just go with it. I'm Son.
I'm Father.
And together, we're Son and Father.
So
I just wanted to see if that would sound as disgusting as it did in my head.
why did you switch to like a Cockney accent at the end there?
Because you were doing an
I'm
accent.
Son and Father, you know?
You were doing an accent, so I did one too.
Yeah, but my accent, you went from doing a British accent, like, just go with it, and then you went into like I'm Son and Father down the street, you know? Like,
Garrett, what
of,
about me makes you think I have any talent in accents whatsoever? Like,
from the many years I've known you?
I did
Nothing.
I did not intentionally do one accent or the other. I just was doing an accent. That's all I have to offer.
And speaking of dead ability, today's topic is zombies.
That's a great transition. Good job. Yeah, Jer and I are both we just like zombies in pop culture. It's freaking cool. Okay, what do you want from us? So we're gonna talk about it. The good news is that we can talk about this semi-educational like, because I once took a class freshman year of college that was literally monsters in pop culture, including zombies. So I have an old PowerPoint that I saved just because I liked the presentation so much. And so I can run through a little bit about the origins of zombies in American pop culture. Yeah.
Do you actually, one question, do you know if you have the ability to screen share?
I would not even begin to know how to do that.
Okay, so go to Discord and look at your voice connected thing.
Okay, voice connected.
You see screen?
Oh, yeah, I do see screen. Share your screen. Okay, I'm selecting the PowerPoint here.
Okay, watch stream.
Making it go live.
All right, I see it.
You do?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right. So here we have. I just thought I'd show you the beginning slide there. It's a picture of The Walking Dead. Okay.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Okay. So the basics of zombies, to really cover this correctly, you actually have to go to a more general definition called the other with a capital O. The other is in terms of like media of storytelling rather. I mean, it can be in real life as well. It's a person or a group that like kind of represents the fears of another person or group. So like, I mean, honestly, real life example, easiest example you can think of is actually racism. Like racism is literally the other in effect. It's like one group of people terrified of another group of people for like no reason at all. They're literally just projecting, anxieties that they have on a different group because they look different, so it's super easy. So we do the same thing when we tell stories that have monsters in them, or really villains of any kind. We like to see ourselves as superior to the other, because we're afraid of the other. Now, in the presentation that I had, that I was viewing, there was 3 basic types of monsters under the cloak of the other. There was Frankenstein's monster, vampires, and the transformation monster, which is the Wolfman. Now, the interesting thing about zombies is they kind of cover all of these, because the Frankenstein's monster represents the idea of predation, of predators, like you're being pursued. The vampire represents violation of the person, so they're biting into your neck, like you're violated. And then contagion is represented by the Wolfman, so when you're bitten by the Wolfman, you turn into a werewolf. So those are kind of the 3 basic things, and zombies actually cover all of those. They're predators, they violate the person, and they're contagious. You get bitten by a zombie, you obviously turn into a zombie. So they're kind of, so in a way, they're kind of like the superior... Your ex-wife turns you into another ex-wife? How does that work?
I don't know.
What was that joke, Jared? Come on.
I was more so she was a predator and violated me, but
Oh, okay, fair enough.
I also thought she was kind of like a virus.
I was, God, I'm not even gonna say that joke. I almost said I violated your ex-wife too. Oh my God, I am so sorry. Okay,
Do I have to cut that out? I'm not sure.
I don't know. I think you might. Uh, just bleep that part. I
It's
don't
towing the
know.
line. It's towing
Yeah,
the
that's
line.
that's towing the line. Okay, anyway, so zombies are kind of like the almost superior monster in pop culture because they cover all three of those bullet points, right?
Gotcha.
So, as far as zombies being introduced to America, it started with a book by this guy, William Seabrook. I have no idea who he is, but he went to the country of Haiti, and Haiti was one of those countries down in Central America where there was like, fear of voodoo and whatever. So those kind of zombies are obviously not the flesh-eating kind of zombies that we would think of. They were just like drones where they just walk around and do work for, their superiors. But it wasn't until Night of the Living Dead, 1968, which is a film by a guy called George Romero. And George Romero is the guy that he's basically responsible for creating what we think of today as zombies, where they're flesh eaters and they're just basically corpses that have risen from the ground. And he combined that with what were first termed as ghouls. Although I think ghouls weren't flesh eaters. I think they were just people rising up from the grave. But Night of the Living Dead 1968 was what started that off. And then Romero made also Dawn of the Dead, Day of the Dead, lots of dead movies. And then we kind of just kicked off into what we know to be the regular zombies. So the zombie that we know obviously eats human flesh, which is against our social taboo of cannibalism. They far outnumber the human protagonist. There is much more focus on social commentary in these first few zombie movies that this guy did. It's kind of all about the first one is kind of about racism, actually, because the lead is an African American, and it's an interesting ending because he gets shot at the end. He was the only survivor, but then he gets shot by these white people who are like raiders, like they're coming into the house to kill zombies, like they're a ragtag group of survivors that we haven't seen up until this point in the movie. And then they shoot him without even checking to see if he's actually a zombie. And so there's kind of because it was the 60s and there was all the race tensions and stuff, that was kind of the idea there. Dawn of the Dead takes place in a mall, and there's many more zombies than what we see in Night of the Living Dead. So the idea of all these zombies just kind of aimlessly walking around the mall is a social commentary. It's a critique of the way people were just like mindlessly consuming. And it was the critique of the quote unquote mall rats. Because that back in 1978, that's when malls were really kicking off and people were just like buying. And so yeah, that's just two examples of how zombies have been used for social commentary. But I don't know. So I'm not personally afraid of zombies. I actually think zombies are cool. Like the very idea of them is cool in my head. But if you were to say I'm scared of zombies, well, the real reason, according to at least this presentation, was that it has to do with Sigmund Freud's the idea of the uncanny. The uncanny it just basically means that you have a feeling that is foreign but also familiar. So, like, if you are scared of clowns, then that's because clowns look mostly human, but like it's just off because of the makeup and the big nose and whatever. It's just off enough to be kind of unsettling. Like it's just not quite right.
It also doesn't help their demonic in nature.
Yeah, but like that's why you think that though, Jer, like psychologically.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the same thing with the zombies, because the
I think
zombies
the
are
reason,
human, but they are not quite human, right? Like that's
I'm gonna
like
be honest.
it's subconscious, but like the idea is that not that
For
I
me,
champion Sigmund Freud, okay, which I don't, but
yeah, I don't know. I think the reason for me, like, this is me just throwing a quip at my dad because he's an asshole. The reason why I don't like clowns isn't necessarily because they're uncanny. It's more so because my dad showed me Killer Clowns from Outer Space when I was like 5. So like, I don't think they're uncanny. I think them as completely foreign entities, like aliens that are killers, not necessarily like a completely different thing. But sorry to interject in that like in that way.
yeah,
But
yeah.
not to make Freud a good guy. Yeah, no, I see what you're saying. But
No, Freud is no. We don't even want to go there. Um, but yeah, that's kind of just the basic rundown. So I will say my last point here, and we'll probably touch more on this later. But obvious an obvious feature of zombie movies and zombie stories in general is that there's usually a small band of humans that are trying hard to work together, but usually are either tearing themselves apart or they're fine, but then there's another group of survivors that they're in conflict with. And I actually want to know how you feel about this, because my personal favorite zombie movies don't feature human on human conflict to a terrible degree.
yeah,
I think that humans versus zombies is just badass. Like, I just like shooting
yeah,
up zombies. You know what I mean?
yep.
I'm not
This
really
is.
interested in
Mhm.
long-term human v human conflict with zombies in the background, which is
Yeah.
kind of what Walking Dead is, for example.
Yeah.
Um,
This is something that I completely agree with. This is why I think that people get it wrong a lot. They try and do this thing where they emphasize the human on human conflict inside of a situation in which humans are against another entity. But humans have been
mhm,
known for all eternity that we know of so far to have a affinity for banding together against a common enemy. When humans don't have that common enemy, it's each other, right? So
mm,
humans will always fight each other if they have a common enemy, right? No matter where they are. Humans are love conflict. We adore it. We crave conflict, and I think that's because of a carnal nature. Hold on. I think that's because of a carnal sin nature, personally, my belief.
yeah.
But given an entity to fight, I think that humans would have a very easy time fighting that. It wouldn't
Mm,
they would band together to fight that thing. And zombies specifically. Now, if zombies were eradicated and it was just the humans, then yeah, they'd go back to fighting each other probably very easily.
mm,
I'm not saying that certain small groups wouldn't band against each other and try and fight for survival, but in the bigger picture, in the conglomerate, humans would see other humans as close. They like this person is like me. This is something
mhm,
that's not going to hurt me. This is a person who is like me. This is that uncanny versus canny is
right.
looking at something that is like you and you attaching yourself to it and it becoming part of your identity. So no longer are you looking at somebody as like, are they Hispanic? Are they a man? Are they a woman? Are they educated? Are they uneducated? Are they from this place or this place? Are they
Mhm.
this, that, right? No, that's all thrown out the window. Those identifiers have become, those separators become useless. All you see is a human being, right?
Right, but see,
Versus
that's the
something
kicker
else.
though, is like the idea of there being any prejudice still technically remains, because I think we as flawed human beings are just like, we've trained ourselves to
Hmm.
think like there has to be some other in our lives. But
Hmm.
like the difference is that zombies are would be a way that like their
Zombies would be that thing you
appearance,
would say different.
right, like their appearance would automatically mean that like prejudices such as race or gender become like way too minute to matter. Like it's
Are
a
you
higher
living or are you
prejudice at that
dead?
point.
Are you going to kill
Exactly.
me or are you going to help me? That's the two
Right.
differences.
Right. Like suddenly humans are banding together and overcoming their smaller prejudices to be prejudiced against a larger and
A
deadlier,
larger entity.
yeah, larger entity, which is the
I
zombies.
I use the racism to kill the racism.
I used to. It nearly killed me, but the work is done.
Oh my gosh, that's really funny. Yeah, so
Yeah.
solution for racism? Zombies. There you go.
Zombies, yeah. So we're gonna
Get
work
on
on
it.
that.
NSA, come on. What are you doing?
Yeah. Yeah.
No,
But but anyway,
I
that's a quick rundown of just a little bit of basic info about them, in case you didn't know about
yeah.
zombies much.
I would definitely say that I didn't know the significance behind the actual history and the talk about zombies. I think that's very interesting topics to be brought up.
Yeah.
One thing that I did notice was like you talked about how the original zombies weren't infectious, they weren't diseased, they were simply the dead being raised.
Right.
And I'd
Yeah.
love to see how that has branched out in so many different formats and forms. You have things like they're just possessed human beings that have become possessed, like in the angel one. You know what that one is? Like I don't remember what it's called, but basically it was like the one where like humans became possessed by demons and angels. I know you good. I was just wondering what you were doing. I thought you were talking to me. But humans were getting possessed by demons and angels. And like this one chick was gonna give birth to like the Christ again or something like that. It was a really fucked up movie, but it was like
I have no idea
it
what
was
you're talking
zombies like
about.
that, pure possession. People probably know what I'm talking about. Let me look it up. Humans possessed by demons all around the world movie. Um, or not by demons, by angels. Yeah, yeah, good. What? My car? Give me my keys back. Legion. You know what Legion is?
Oh, is that a show?
It was a movie. Keys. Give me my keys. Give me my
'Cause there was
keys.
a
Grant. Stop. Stop on me. No, the movie Legion. Do you know what that is?
no. I just know of the TV show that was an X-Men show. I'm
No,
looking
the
it up
movie
now.
Legion is a 2010 fantasy horror movie. And the synopsis for the patrons and staff of Dusty Roadside Diner, the day begins as usual, but then the phones go out and a sweet old lady goes into the attack. It's a harbinger of the terror to come as the horrifying nature of the situation sinks in. Help arrives in the form of an archangel Michael, who tells the pregnant waitress that her unborn baby is humanity's last hope, and he will do anything to protect it, right? And so it's not a really good movie. In fact, it's super, super sacrilegious.
Mm,
Um, but it is the exact opposing end to what I'm about to say in the form of how do you attribute a zombie movie? Like, what is your definition of a zombie movie? I say it
mm,
is like it the undead to any kind of infectious, all the three things that you were talking about, whatever.
right.
Um, becoming a reality for humans. Humans no longer being humans. Humans being taken over by something else, right?
Mm,
So whether that's by a virus, by simply them being the undead come back to life, or them being possessed, right? So you have on one end the super unnatural possession entirely in something like Legion, and then you have the exact opposite end on something like World War Z, where it's a massive virus that is somehow taken over.
yeah.
That is simply a natural phenomena that has gone out of control, right? So like zombie movies have morphed so drastically from their origin, and it is incredible to see the creativity that has come out of it. Like werewolf movies, they will always be werewolf movies. They will always be the same. You have no diversity. You can make a cool movie or show out of it, but it's always going to be the same. Very little bits of lore will change.
Mm,
It might add on lore, but the core lore will never change, right? Vampires, same thing. You can kind of go between are they demons or are they simply like is it like the same thing, you get bit, you turn into a vampire because of something, so right? People say that you can change before they're demons, that kind of thing, right? It went from them being demons to them just being a different race entirely that could change you. Same thing with
yeah.
werewolves, right? That's the kind of like the origin of those, is that it was demonic in nature, them turning into other people was like almost possession in a way. So but you'll always know that with a zombie movie, the level, the playing field for what could be happening, what's going on, is it a virus, is it possession, is it this, is it that, is completely up to interpretation. There is no real significant like factor that says these zombies are this because of X or these zombies are
Mm,
that way because of Y, which I think is so cool and why I adore zombie movies so much and like zombies more than anything else. I've read so many books about like zombie infections and things like that and how interesting they become, because it can be like, one's a virus, one's simply a medicine that was given to humanity that caused them to go crazy and turn different things, become really strong and just
Parasites.
simply go insane. Parasites. It's dude, it is so cool to see that the differentials between zombie movies. Like, like I love that. I don't know how you feel on that topic, but how do you feel about like that specifically, that nature of zombies?
No, yeah. Well, so I don't I think most of the zombie movies that I really adore actually, interestingly enough, don't get hung up on how it happened almost at all. So the original Night of the Living Dead, it took, I think, a close eye to even find this. But there's a little bit of talk at one point from like a radio or a TV station that mentions a satellite that was orbiting Venus and then returned or whatever. And so there was like an assumption by the people watching the movie, like they came up with the theory that like, okay, so radiation or something from Venus like woke up the corpses. And that's kind of a running thing throughout the Romero movies, as far as I know. It's also,
well, there's also during a time where radiation was a big thing, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, yeah, because I mean, it was the late '60s versus the '50s when the nuclear fear was like really there, but like, yeah. Kind of still a little bit. But that was also referenced in Shaun of the Dead. There's a also scene that's similar to that where you can kind of hear them talk about that on the TV. And then I think the Zombieland movies don't say at all how it happened. I think they just jump right into it. But that's also just kind of like the advantage that we have in this post irony state of entertainment media that we've been in since, I would argue, the 2010s really kicked off, where like you kind of just know that zombies are zombies and you know the basics of how that works, and the end point is that like it doesn't really matter how they got here, depending on what kind of movie you want to make. Like you can just jump right into it if you want to, which is what the Zombieland movies do, and it's what like some underground cult movies like Dance of the Dead do. But then others will still get, obviously they'll still talk about sources and whatnot. And I don't know that I have a particular favorite like source of zombie or like a cause of them. But I wrote a 20-30 page short film about a zombie outbreak where the cause was a parasite. So I guess if I were going to say I was partial to one of them, it would be that.
Parasitic nature. Gotcha.
Yeah.
So do you like the complete deformity of the human body, or do you like it when the human body stays somewhat natural to its state? It's just you can tell that it's been altered in the way that it's a zombie. Like the popping up, the veins are different. The mouth is
what really tends to bother me is when zombies retain a lot of mechanics. This happened just this year with Zack Snyder's Army of the Dead. They were all rotted up. They were, clearly zombies in appearance, but they were doing things like riding animals on, horseback style. They were like operating elevators, and they were communicating with one another. And I forgot about this scene. This was the stupidest scene in the movie. There was a freaking zombie baby. Like two zombies had actual sex, created a baby, a zombie baby. Like this was a scene in the movie. And even without that scene, my point is like when zombies retain all these human-esque abilities, that takes away what makes them zombies, in my opinion. So I don't really care if they're like rotted or if they're just like clearly kind of human but maybe a little veiny, or they have different color eyes or whatever. That really doesn't matter to me. I just need them to be like mindless flesh eaters, because that's what a zombie is supposed to be. I mean, like you were saying earlier, obviously the reality is that you can have a lot of different styles of zombies, but I think there's still a line that you shouldn't cross, because at that point it just doesn't make any sense. Army of the Dead was a movie that made it seem like they could have just been shooting regular bad guys at that point. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I don't like that. If that's not, I don't like that it was not a zombie movie, because they're not dead.
It wasn't really.
If they're able to procreate, that's one of the definitions of not being dead.
Right.
Procreation.
Yeah.
It's not the army of the dead. That's the army of the somehow turned into a different species thing.
Dead-ish.
Dead-ish. Army of
I
the
don't know.
dead-ish. Take that, Zack Snyder.
Yeah. Fuck you, Zack Snyder. I'm sorry.
No, but I think that's why I do like because I've been doing this thing, which I think you would be good at, is like movie synopses. Synopses? Movie synopses of like 10-minute movies where I can watch this 10-minute like thing of an entire movie. It's like text to speech in the background that explains the entire thing that's going on.
Oh, yeah.
So I can learn about the entire movie in like 10, 15 minutes. And I've been doing that quite a bit in my spare time. So like I've become kind of a connoisseur of like I have an approximate knowledge of almost every movie that I can talk about, and it's great. So like
It's like perfect for when your friend recommends you this movie that you just totally don't want to watch. You're like, oh yeah, I'll check it out.
Exactly. I've seen so many weird fucking movies. But like one of the things that I know is what is it called? For example, I watched this one Japanese movie. Like it was a 10-minute long Japanese zombie movie where like it disfigured humans into like these like they could have elongated arms. They were like really fucking weird and creepy. They weren't like really mentally there, but like one of the people got bit. One guy got bit and he's the main character. He didn't turn. Another girl got bit. And she turned halfway, and like didn't fully turn and all that stuff. And she became like, it was just like this. I honestly think it was a pretty big copy of like the not fully turning thing of like an anime, Demon Slayer. Just putting that out there. But I was okay with it for the sole fact that the zombies, not all of them were able to be halfway. Some of them were just like kind of zombies. Some of them were like super zombies and whatnot. But like, it just felt weird that they threw in that like half zombie thing. I guess it was good to the point, like for the show or not for the show, but for the movie. But it just seemed like it was like haphazardly thrown in there. Like if they had made it like the point of it was like that. Like I've watched a show where like this guy got bit and he didn't turn. Got bit by a bunch of zombies and he didn't turn. It was on like a Netflix show and he was like the cure and they had to find out why he was the cure. Same thing. And for example, in The Last of Us, they did the same thing with that, right? But they made that the selling point instead of just kind of like thrown in there. It was about the main character and it wasn't about like a random character. So I think they can do that in a way. But like you're right in the sense that if you just kind of throw in things for zombies, like you can't just slap zombie movie on something and make it not like a real zombie movie and then try and pass it off as a good movie.
Yeah.
It's impossible to do that because really good zombie movies, their plot is extremely, I wouldn't say fluid, but they know what they're doing. If it's intended to be a comedy, it's going to be a comedy with zombie factors in it, right? If it's intended to be a drama, it's going to be a drama with zombie factors into it. If it's intended to be like a show just about killing, an action movie, right? It's going to be an action with zombie killing in it, right? But a lot of the times people try and make like these amalgamations with like zombie just thrown on there, and it just doesn't work out. I don't know. Like I feel so like bitter about movies that try and do that because it taints the zombie name, It makes me annoyed, vaguely upset. But
well, I mean, again, Army of the Dead was just going to be an action kill 'em zombie movie, but and like it would have been a good.
It wasn't a zombie movie.
It just wasn't a zombie movie in the sense that the zombies were not acting like zombies, and that's literally that's the biggest possible rule you could break in making a zombie movie to make it not good. So
well. Speaking of like zombie movies, I kind of have some things that I like. I mentioned it before, but I actually did a little bit of research on one particular zombie movie in general, which is my favorite zombie movie, and I'm gonna get hate for this because it is my favorite.
I'm about to start a debate with you.
Okay, so my favorite zombie movie is World War Z, and there's a reason for it, right? I believe that World War Z is one of the most plausible zombie movies made. Period. In some regards, in terms of the actual virus itself, right? And this is why. World War Z starts off. It starts off in a cool way it sort of explains the character's past without having to dive too much into it. And it is able to sum up that this character's a badass, but he doesn't have to say it in order for people to know it. People are already looking for him when things break out, things go south, and he's a family man. He takes care of his family first in a cool way. And it shows really early on how humans would actually react if there was an outbreak. Like the scene where his wife almost gets taken away, and there's some people that are going to be like, this is the end of the world, I'm going to do what I want. There's some people that are like, I need to take care of my family, I'm going to get this stuff. There's some people like, I'm going to take care of myself, I'm going to do this, right? So at some point, his wife almost gets, I think, raped in one of the, I can't actually say that word on YouTube, I don't think. Maybe it can, it doesn't matter. In one of the scenes, and he saves her, shoots a guy, and a cop runs in and sees them and immediately runs past them and goes to grab baby food. So it's like, it shows how things will deteriorate and people will immediately, at the start of tragedy in general, will try and look after their own, right? And then that morphs into, they realize that now everyone's their own and they have to somehow work together to get this thing fixed. It ends up getting to where they start working with a bunch of different people. They go over different places. Tragedy continues to happen. People start to work more and more together. And then they start to fix the problem. The problem gets fixed, right? That's, in my opinion, a really good way to round that thing out. And that's what World War Z did. So they head to Israel after trying to find the cure. He basically, it starts out, he's a journalist. He's a military journalist. Or an investigator, excuse me, not an investigator. He's a military investigator that is tasked with finding out why did this virus start in order to protect his family. He goes to one place, gets some information on it, bits and pieces, goes to another, goes to Israel, wonders why they knew about it. Turns out to be somewhat of a fluke, but they do something that causes another tragedy. Goes to another place, more tragedy occurs, and then he gets to his final destination, in which he finds out by piecing all of the parts of the puzzle together in the end as to why this virus is the way it is and how do we stop it, right? And it does it in a really cool way. It doesn't just say there's a cure-all. It doesn't just say that there's a way to do anything. There's no protection necessarily from the virus, but it makes it in a plausible way, which is this virus is a virus. Most viral infections won't infect a host that's already infected by another virus or something deadly, terminal, right? It doesn't want to infect a host that can't spread spread the rest of the virus. That's how viruses act. So, right? It turns out that in the end, they find a way to camouflage themselves by infecting themselves with technically terminal but curable illnesses. Or not terminal. Terminal deadly. I think terminal means deadly. They can still be cured though. But terminal illnesses or viruses that will kill in time but can be cured, right? So they do it in a way that doesn't make it cheesy. And it is still tragic in nature, but there's a way to fight back, and humanity has a fighting chance. And they don't show you all the fighting chance, they just show you that they're fighting back in the very end, right? And that's why I like it so much, is that it doesn't try and make it this beautiful picture of everyone's saved, everyone's gonna live. They make it like they have a chance now. They're camouflaged. They can survive this, right? That's why I liked World War Z. That's why I thought it was more realistic than a lot of the things I had watched. And that's why I think that it did the drama well as well, and the acting was good. So I enjoyed World War Z, and that's why it's my favorite movie. You can dissect me now if you'd like to.
Well, no, I'm not gonna argue really any of your points, because I mean you're not wrong in what you're saying that the film is accomplishing. I am going to instead, this is what I'll do. I'll just instead advocate for my favorite zombie movie, and I'll try to relate it a little bit to yours, but I'll talk about why it's my favorite. Now, bear in mind, a lot of the reasons this movie is my favorite are hardly original, but what else is new? So, my favorite zombie movie is Shaun of the Dead, which is the 2004 British comedy take on the aspects of Night of the Living Dead and Dawn of the Dead. Now, Shaun of the Dead, I say comedy, it's technically a parody, but like the more it goes on, it gets less and less hung up with trying to be funny. And that's not really what I what sticks out in my mind as a highlight of it. So I think I mentioned this earlier, but Shaun of the Dead is one of those zombie movies where the source of the outbreak is not really touched upon. There's kind of just zombies one day. So insofar as like your interest in like the plausibility of it, then World War Z would probably have it beat. But what I think is interesting about Shaun of the Dead is kind of in the way that World War Z, according to what you were saying, was like it addresses these how it might happen on like a larger scale. Shaun of the Dead is very small scale. I mean, the whole thing takes place inside of one neighborhood, one kind of small zone. Um, but that's I still think that it is doing the same thing that World War Z would do, which is be as plausible, be treating it with plausibility as much as possible, in the sense that like there are at the beginning a ton of survivors. There is not the kind of panic that you would expect in the streets, in the sense that like there's not a ton of cars crashing into one another, nobody's running and screaming. You kind of follow them almost slowly, and then you kind of start ascending towards, you know, more intense sequences. But like they have the same thing going on where they're like sticking together, taking care of their own. Like the whole plot of the first half is they're going to get Shawn's mom. Like they're going to rescue her, and he's got his best friend and his girlfriend, and that's like where they're headed. Or excuse me, I think they get the mom first and then get his girlfriend. Either way. But then at the same time, they're not quite banding together the way they should, because there's this hilarious scene where they are creeping through a backyard and they bump into a different group of survivors, which is led by Martin Freeman, who's Bilbo Baggins. And they kind of just like say, "Oh, hey, it's you," like they're friends, but they just kind of go like, "Oh, what's up?" And then they both just like keep walking. Like there's no like animosity there, but like they also just don't care to team up, which I think is funny. It's almost like they're not taking the threat quite as seriously as you would expect, but like I also don't know if that expectation would be like necessarily right. Like I almost feel like that's what a lot of people probably would do, is just kind of like do a thing of like, oh, this will pass, you know. Whether or not, like, I mean, maybe that's just because psychologically that's like what we would subconsciously want to do, you know, to make it better on ourselves or make it easier on ourselves. It's just sort of like treat it like it's not that big a deal, you know. But then by the end of the movie, it still hit all these other bullet points that you were talking about, where there is not a ton of survivors, and it's not quite a bleak ending per se, because Shawn lives and he gets the girl and all that. But I think where Shaun of the Dead really just like takes it higher for me is two things. One, the zombie outbreak is over by the end of the movie, and the end of the movie spans like 2 or 3 days. So what is portrayed here is what I think would probably actually happen, if I'm honest, is the zombies, who are a bunch of slow, shuffling drones, get defeated by the military very easily. Which I think is what would really happen. I mean, you could argue that in movies like World War Z, where they're moving fast and all that, the outcome could be different. But at least for the zombie movies where they're just regular old slow-moving zombies, what most movies get wrong is that like they would never in a million years take over, you know? I just don't think it would happen. So that's one thing. The other thing that I just freaking love is in the final few minutes, it starts raising all these ethical questions about what a post-zombie apocalypse society would do with the remaining zombies. So because they don't know the source and they don't know the cure, they kind of just keep the zombies around. Like you see shots on the news channel of like they've chained up zombies and made them like work in like, for example, a supermarket parking lot. I think was like there was a zombie pushing a cart into the little cart slot because they'd chained him up to do that, or they'd hung some like bait or something to make him do that. And Shawn keeps his best friend, who was turned into a zombie, locked up in his shed just for kicks. just out of like sentimentality. Like, well, this guy was once my best friend, even though he's undead now, so I'm just going to keep him around. And it's kind of like a slight jab at the audience. Like, it makes you want to question yourself and say, like, okay, would this make any sense if we actually did that? For a variety of reasons. But, and then of course, I mean, the best frickin' line of all is, Shawn, what should we do? What should we do? And he looks right at the camera. He goes, go to the Winchester, have a nice cold pint, and wait for all this to blow over. But it's in Simon Pegg's voice, so it's freaking hilarious. But yeah, that's why Shaun of the Dead is my favorite zombie movie.
That's funny. No, I like the question raised. What if it was just normal zombies? Because you see things like The Walking Dead. The Walking Dead pisses me off so much.
Yeah, I don't like it.
When one person gets bit, it takes hours for them to turn. Right? Like, how is that plausible that there's that many zombies? Like, just enough zombies that, like, one person gets bit. Because if you get bit, you're just going to kill yourself. You know that it's worth killing yourself in that nature to, like, not worry about everything else, right? So if they're all that slow, how did that many people get bit? Because if there's enough of them, yeah, if there's, like, a giant conglomerate at the start. But I don't know if they touch on it or not. But if they did touch on it, I don't remember them ever touching on it.
Yeah, I've only watched a couple of episodes and I was bored to death because that show does exactly what I was saying earlier. I don't like when zombies movies or media do, is like they focus on human v human conflict instead of human v zombies. Exactly. But like the thing is they just skip over that entire question. Like the pilot episode begins long into the apocalypse where Rick wakes up and has no memory of what happened. And that's how they avoid answering that question, is how did a bunch of slow-ass zombies whose bites take forever to come into effect, how did they take over the entire world? We don't know.
I'm going to do a very bad thing. People are going to be very angry for me. I don't know if this is true or not, but I think it's been long enough since the show's died that I can say this. I'm pretty sure that in the comics, like, Rick just wakes up in the hospital again, and it turns out he was in a coma. They pull a Lost.
I think you're right. I think that did happen.
I think that's what happened, but I'm not sure. So I'm not going to say that was a spoiler because I'm not positive. It could be a complete lie. I think that's what happened, but I'm not sure. So I agree that that's what annoys me about zombie movies or like The Walking Dead. That show is that it does that. It infuriates me. If it was just a dream, I'll give them kind of a pass. But excuse me, if it wasn't a dream, then there is no way I can give them a pass on that. That is BS. There's no way a zombie outbreak would happen like that. That is why I kind of like the viral or parasitic infection more. Is like because of the nature of a virus or a parasite taking over the body, or even a fungal infection taking over the body, that would allow most of a human's functions to stay intact. You know, for example, what's it called? World War Z. That was a virus, and the virus, for some reason, the incubation period in the virus was extremely short, which I don't think is very plausible on that end. But I don't know. There could be a super virus.
How short? Like a few seconds?
It's like 8 to 12 seconds is like the average incubation period for the virus.
Yeah, so that's kind of like the exact opposite of Walking Dead, where that's almost a little too fast, I guess.
Exactly. I think that like is a little bit too quick.
I think it should be a couple minutes, like just kind of,
That's the one qualm I really have with it, but that's how they got around the whole, like, how is this spreading so quickly thing, right? Is like, that's how they did it, is by making it so the incubation period was extremely fast. If it was a fungal infection, I would say it's a different story entirely, or a parasitic infection, that's instantaneous, that I can understand that. But a viral infection is a little bit too quick. But even so, I like how that gets around the whole problem of they're not dead flesh. They're flesh eating, but they're not dead flesh, right?
Yeah.
Like, they are only there to infect. and to spread their virus is what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And so that causes that whole like necessity, that nature of being able to have that power. And the coolest part is I think it somewhat takes away from their human factor by unlimiting the human stops. Because humans are actually extremely powerful beings in the sense of like our bodies are extremely, extremely powerful. Problem is if we were to use our bodies at their full potential, their full strength, we would break every bone in our body constantly. That's just the facts, right? You see stories about how moms will pick up entire cars just to save their kid, or like for example, an 8-year-old kid picked up his brother's car, or these guys that can pull trains, right? It's like it's due to the humans' immense potential for power and exertion. Like if we use every one of our muscle strands to do something, right?
Yeah.
But again, it would kill us to do that. So we'd have much shorter lifespans. But the zombies don't have that subconscious redaction of human power. They just instantly can use it because they don't have any care for themselves. All they're concerned about is turning other people into humans, or turning other humans into zombies. So that is why I think viruses are the best. And again, why I like World War Z the most is because viruses or parasites allow for that. Whereas like the dead flesh thing, zombies aren't going to move quick if they're dead. Right? Even if it is a virus, if it's a virus that rots away the human body after a while, they're not going to be powerful zombies. They're going to be crappy zombies. They're going to be easy to kill zombies. You just whack them a little bit and they're dead. No ability to move or anything like that, you know?
But like that is the kind that you'd want to happen in real life.
Oh, of course. If that was the case, I'd be much more happy.
Yeah.
But like, I don't know. What would you do in an actual zombie scenario? What would you actually do? What do you think you would do?
Better call Paul.
Better call Paul.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I've
got a mantra, Jer.
You, Wong, Archer, and I would just jump on Paul's back and start running.
At that point, though, we'd be killing Polish because that would be him using every muscle in his body.
I think he'd just say, "I'm fast as fuck, boy," and just sprint off into the night, and we'd be fine. And for zombies would try and bite him, and it would just be like steel. His skin would not be harmed.
But in all seriousness, though, I don't think that Polish would let us in.
Yeah.
I think we'd show up at his door. He'd be like, "No."
Yeah, no. Paulie would be at his dad's estate, and they would be just fine because they're preppers. So
the thing about Polish is that like a man who owns that many knives is like fully prepared for the end of the world, but he's also the kind of guy who's not going to share his prep with you.
Yeah, exactly. But my thing is like, I think if Paulie was on his own, he'd take care of us, but he's got his family.
Right.
So that takes precedence, which I understand.
Yeah, which is understandable. I honestly, I think that what I would do is, if I were actually playing it smart, okay, there's two ways you could go about it. You could play it not smart, and you could just treat it like a game, which I would probably be tempted to do, but
I'd be very much
especially if they were slow movers, like I would be tempted to just be like, all right, party, let's go out there and beat some ass. But if I were actually playing it smart, I think the thing that people just don't consider is like, this is assuming I'm at home when this happens, of course. Because if you're out there like in the middle of the street or in a store or something, then the whole game plan changes, and then you actually have to start treating it like a game so you can help yourself get out alive. Because you got to actually fight some zombies. But if I'm stuck at home and I turn on the TV and I see this is happening, like, people kind of forget you can just stay inside. And if you don't make noise, then the zombies don't know you're there. And if you have food in your kitchen, I'm getting there. If you have food in your kitchen that can last as, like, if you got canned food that will last you a while, right? Then, like, you could stay in there for at least a couple of weeks. And what will then happen is that the zombie horde will have been so spread out that then if you want to go scavenge or look for friends or survivors, your chances of being successful go way up because you've given the zombies time to spread themselves around, so you're not facing a mass of them when you go outside. Because what happens, and that is something I think that The Walking Dead got right, because you get several seasons in, and a lot of the time they would happen upon just one or two zombies just walking in the woods, just lost aimlessly because they've got spread out and just nothing to do and nowhere else to go, and they've lost the scent of human flesh, so they're just kind of there. And that's the ideal scenario that you want to wait for in an apocalypse. And then obviously you can still play it smart in other ways. You can ride a bike or walk instead of use a car and make noise. You can rely on baseball bats and machetes instead of guns, which are going to run out of ammo anyway. There's ways to play it smart that most movies don't portray, partially because it's not as interesting, and won't hold your attention as an audience member. But partially because I think the movie would just be over real fast, because that's just how you survive, I think, is you just make there be as little excitement as possible, you know?
Do you think that zombies would die?
I think there's been shows, and I think Walking Dead portrays that. I think that there's a point where like the zombies continue to rot, right? Like they continue to act as corpses would, and so eventually they do become depleted and are just skeletons.
Because this is one thing I think World War Z got wrong, really wrong, is the show doesn't go on long enough to really like portray it as much as I would like to see, but it says that the zombies were dormant, right? Whenever you give something, can you hear that music in the background? Wait, no, never mind. Whenever you give, it's still technically a living organism if it's a virus, right? If it's a viral infection, it's a living organism. That living organism needs energy of some sort. It doesn't photosynthesize. How's it going to get that energy? So it's like, is it eating? World War Z, it doesn't show them eating each other. Just they only infect, right? So is it eating? Is it doing something? Is it just so dormant until it needs to be undormant that it's just conserving all that energy? Do they eventually die? Like, what happens? Because if it's a viral infection, then they would need energy somehow still. If it's a parasite, then it would just use the body until the body died, or it would find ways for the body to get energy so it could still live by sucking off energy from the human being, right? Or if it's just simply a zombie contagion, right? Like a bug of some sort or something like that, like just the zombie stuff is happening. That would remove that. Like The Walking Dead's supposed to be a virus, but it's really not. Because they still rot, and and they can live for a certain amount of time, right? Or like, what is the stopping point? Where does it go?
Yeah.
Because we're talking about the possibility of a zombie movie, and in real life, what would happen? Real life situation. I think that in a real life situation, I would wait them out. Knowing that, I would wait them out. I would wait them out on a boat in the ocean.
If you could get to a boat in the ocean.
No. I would get to the ocean side somehow. And once I got there, I would just have like either a boat in the ocean, or I would just be like, I would push the boat off to a certain distance and just drop anchor. Just leave it there. And when I need to go get food, I'd swim. Because there's no way the zombies are going to be that coordinated to know how to swim, right? Because they know how to run and jump. But other than that, they've lost all of their functionality. I mean, if they're a Walking Dead zombie, they're going to float to the bottom. They can't have that muscle control. And like, we know already that you can't just like scramble around in the water to swim. You actually have to have that pushing motion. So it's just going to be flopping around trying to run to me. Instead of able to run to me, it's going to just sink. So
yeah, but I mean, still, like the actual like movie there in that plan is the actual getting to the boat. Like
that's true.
You have to get to a boat without dying. Like that's the kicker.
I would just get a medieval suit of armor.
Well, then where are you going to find that? Like,
there's a museum everywhere.
Okay. I just think like it's not that your plan is bad. It just requires you to have access to a lot of crap that you don't have access to.
I'm in the military. Okay, I have a lot of access to a few things.
Okay.
I can get on my car and drive it as much as possible. It's electric. No, it's not. It's gas, but I can say that all I want.
Okay.
Dude, you have a Tesla and you just put it on self-driving mode, have it drive through everything as you drive through the zombie
Let's be
apocalypse
real.
in a Tesla.
If anyone's surviving the apocalypse, it's Elon Musk. Like,
Oh my gosh, dude! Imagine you just go cross country and the only thing that works is those electrical things because the power plants are still probably working because they kind of like self-generate. So it's like
he's got his Tesla, he's got his flamethrower, and he's just driving.
As long as the dams still work, you just hop in your Tesla. You go to the Tesla will drive you to things. So you're just passed out or you're playing Plants vs Zombies on the screen while it's going.
Yeah.
Passing out, having a good time in the Tesla. It's going still as fast as ever. As long as it doesn't break down, you're fine. You are set.
Yeah, man.
That's how you do it. That's how you survive a zombie situation. You get to a boat in a Tesla.
You just get to a boat in a Tesla.
Get to the boat, grab the Tesla.
Into the Tesla, come on!
Come
This
on.
is crazy.
We're getting pretty close to, I think, like a point where it's a good ending stop. I mean, because I could talk about this for another 3 hours, but I don't think anyone wants to have that. So, and if people do want it, more of it, we'll just do another episode. But
we'll just live stream a 4-hour conversation.
That is definitely something that I would not mind doing. But I think honestly, what I would do in a zombie situation is I would get my family. I would find a way to get to them first. That would be the first step, right? Is I would find a way to get to my family. Make sure I have non-perishable foods, but not valuable non-perishable foods. Things that people normally don't take, like tuna. There's a lot of things like tuna people will just like subconsciously not want to grab because they're like, oh, it's fish. It's gonna go bad.
Luke would.
Like, if
Luke
tuna's
would
not
take
in a
tuna.
can, if tuna's in like a packaging, like one of those like little what brand?
What brand
of
does
tuna?
Luke take?
What?
I said Luke would take the tuna.
Okay, well, Luke's Luke, and you know that.
Yeah.
Your mom fed him tuna for like every day in middle school, so
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, I loved it. I had tuna as well, so I was very happy that someone else. But I grabbed the tuna, I grabbed the salmon, I grabbed the fish, I grabbed the beans. I would grab those little rice packets that all you have to do is like squish it together a little bit and like heat it up and put some water in it. It's fine. You know, I would make a pack with just the essentials and ways to get water without needing like actual water. Like if I could find one of those straws, or if I could find iodine, I'd get some iodine. Grab alcohol, like just as much alcohol as possible. Put it in my pack. And get to my family. Get rollerblades. Those would be so useful.
Those would be pretty useful.
Like you're trying to outrun a zombie, minimal effort to outrun them with the rollerblades.
Yeah,
but they'd have to be those rollerblades that you can like kick out, right? So like you can go from like sports mode to run mode just in case, or maybe wheelies. Get some Heelys or something like that and go around.
That's what I want to see. A zombie movie with Heelys.
I think a scooter would be nice.
Yeah, well, if you get a razor scooter, it doubles as a weapon.
Exactly. And then I would get to my family, and then I'd get to you guys somehow. If you were still alive, I'd find you. I would make sure I'd get there, and then from there, I would go to some place out in the open, like a plains or a field, or maybe a forest, and make a tree house, right? Somewhere where I can see something coming, and where I can have a decent vantage point to make sure that it dies.
You're just playing Minecraft at this point, Jared.
That's kind of what I was thinking.
Yeah.
And as we all know, I'm the best crafter on the server, so I kill me.
Are you? I don't know. I was gonna support you. I was gonna say, okay, maybe you are.
No, that's a lie. But I think family first would be the big thing. But then I'd start evangelizing and tell people about Jesus.
That's always the best solution to an apocalypse.
Tell zombies about Jesus. I'll round back to the whole zombie Jesus turning people from zombies into humans thing.
Yeah.
Just back around to that circle. Speaking of turning zombies back into humans, this is the question I want to ask you that I saw on a iFunny post that you might have seen.
Okay.
2 years into the zombie apocalypse. Everything is going wrong. You're cornered by a zombie. You're about to die. And out of a blind instinctive reaction, you bite him first. The zombie steps away, lays on the ground, starts freaking out. Skin starts to grow back. Hair goes back to normal, somewhat. Eyes look up and says, "Where the fuck am I?" You're the
Like,
first
what is
human to ever try that, and
Yeah.
it worked. What do you do?
Well, I have a couple options here. And by the way, I've never heard this question before, actually. I have a couple options. If the zombie that I bite that turns into a human is like a hot woman, then I won't tell her that I cured her. I could just be like, it's you and me, babe. Like, we're in this apocalypse thing together. We gotta, hook up, reproduce. We gotta...
we gotta start a new world.
We gotta start a new world. We gotta do right by our species. No, I wouldn't do that. That's terribly unethical.
That is horrid.
Yeah, I would never do that. I would feel
probably
so
be
guilty.
Rank as well, man. I don't know if you want to smell.
That's true. That's a good point, though. I didn't even consider that. I gotta tell you though, as much as it, like, I don't see myself running around just biting zombies. Like,
but if you figured out that happened and you knew you were the cure, or at least biting them was the cure, like it'd just be a game of tag by that point. Like a really crazy game of tag.
I love that. Reminds me of, so I was going to tell you, I couldn't find anything just scrolling through the top results on Google to confirm if Rick Grimes was just dreaming the whole time. But I did find somebody saying, what if The Walking Dead is just a bunch of kids playing Infection, and every time one of them dies, it's really just their mom calling them in for dinner. Which, personally, I support that fan theory. I think that makes the whole show just really deepens it,
I think I would be a biting machine. I would have a shirt that says "Bite Me," and I would just go after it. Like I would.
Because you bit people as a child, didn't you, Jared?
I would be I would decimate the zombie population, and I would be biting everyone and everything. Because I would be like, I can do this, and then I'd probably get bit, and then somebody have to bite me too. So I'd just be like, this
but then just
cycle of like.
But then just imagine like let's say you're the only one who can do this. Like, the taste of dead flesh will be in your mouth forever because you've had to run around biting every single zombie.
Do you know how many women would love you for saving the world?
Yeah, but then they wouldn't want to kiss you because your breath would be awful.
I'd pull George Washington. They don't get the mouth.
What?
They may kiss me on the forehead, and that is it.
Is that what George Washington said?
Well, no, but George Washington didn't like to show his teeth because he had dentures.
Oh, well, yeah, he had those wooden ones, right?
Yeah.
Well, anyway, I just think that plan would have its downs. I think the only upside would be the actual like rejuvenation of life, which I'm not sure is enough for me to want to bite every single zombie in the world.
Well, you'd be your spit probably, so you'd probably just like coat your like.
Well, okay, but then that totally changes things. If it's just my spit, then I could just like spit into a water gun until it's fully loaded and just walk around spraying them.
You have to recharge. You'd be dry cotton mouth all the time. Would you just lick end of like a knife and like tack somebody a little bit, or you get a tack and like lick it, tack somebody?
I would just like go slowly. Like, it'd be a slow process. I would just like shoot a few a day, just spit a few a day. Like, it's not like water doesn't exist in this post-apocalyptic world. I'll walk around with a water bottle and keep refreshing my saliva.
Zombies start realizing what you were and start running away, or would they be too stupid to do that? Like,
I think they'd be too. In my perfect world, in my perfect apocalypse, they're too stupid to do that.
In my perfect apocalypse,
dude, we could have a whole other podcast on my perfect apocalypse. Like,
okay, well, I guess it's going to be episode 2 of this 2-part series, My Perfect Apocalypse, because we have reached almost an hour and like 17 minutes. So,
golly, time flew by, dude. That's a great topic.
Yeah, I mean, it hasn't been an hour and 17 minutes, but it's been like an hour and 4 minutes. So that was fast. I still want to talk about it, is why I need to stop it now, because I know I'll keep talking about it and it'll be really bad. Because we'd have to probably break this up into like a 2-part episode. So I don't know about that one, Chief.
We've never had to do that before. I don't think we should make ourselves do it now.
Yeah, so we're gonna end it now, but we'll continue next episode probably with like My Perfect Apocalypse. I think that'll be like a really good one to go on to.
I'm okay with continuing this for next week.
Oh, dude, what if we had like did this all the way through October? My Perfect Apocalypse. No, I'm kidding.
Dude, we could not do that.
That would be so bad. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this episode of FNS, please like, comment, and subscribe. If not, why are you here? You listened for far too long.
Yeah, for real.
Yeah, I was son,
And I was father.
and we were father and son. Peace.